Woof.
Okay, so here it is. All right. This is the dev blogs that I'm behind on looking at. One of them came out, this first one came out yesterday on March 1st. This is regarding changes to test ships in Closed Test 12.2. And based on testing results, Wargaming is applying changes to the Pan American cruisers and the European destroyers. Okay, so these are the two new lines that are coming out next. Let's see what happens. So Tier 5 Pan American cruiser La Argentina. Let's get into this. Main battery reload time increased from 9.5 to 10 seconds. Wow, okay. Maximum AP shell damage reduced. So nerf, and main battery firing range with the researchable gunfire control system module reduced from 14.5 to 14.2. So this is a triple nerf. So somewhere a little bit more, just over a 5% DPM nerf, basically. About a 3%, roughly a 3% reduction in AP shell damage nerf, and then a 300 meter reduction in so about a 2% reduction in firing range with the researchable module. So not gigantic nerfs, but still, you know, you have to look at the shell damage and the reload time being a double nerf to the AP DPM, because you're nerfing the shell by 3% and the reload time by a little more than 5. So that's, you know, definitely some nerfs. I'm not really excited about the Pan American cruisers, to be quite honest. I'm not into these combat instruction things. I don't know. Maybe they'll come out and I'll play them and decide I like them. You never know. But right now, I don't see it. So let's look at Pan American Cruiser Tier 7. Colonel Colonel Bolognese. Main battery reload time reduced from 7 to 6.5. Now that's interesting. Don't recall. I think that's got 8 guns on it. I think it's got 4x2, I believe. So, but yeah, that's a decent enough little buff. That's what, probably 7-8%, right around the 8% range maybe. So that's okay. Then you got the Tier 8 Pan American Cruiser Ignacio Allende. We need to come up with a new name for that. But main battery reload time increased from 6 to 7 seconds. So they're actually making the reload time on the Tier 8 a little bit worse than the Tier 7, but I do believe the Tier 8 has more guns. It has at least 10. But again, I don't remember these ships that good. But 6 to 7 seconds, that's pretty significant. That's 1/6 more, which is what, 17, right at 17%, 16.7 or something like that. 16.5, 17% DPM nerf. That's interesting. European destroyer Lambros Katsanas, Tier 9. Smokescreen dispersion time reduced from 97 to 93 seconds. So basically they're saying your smoke lasts 4 seconds less. I don't really see that having a huge effect on gameplay. What does that mean? If you're firing your guns at something in smoke, you're going to get one less salvo off without being spotted. That's really about all that, I think. And European destroyer Tier 10, the Gdansk. Smoke screen dispersion time increased from 93 to 97, which is the opposite. That's weird. That's just weird looking. So that one they increased by 4 seconds. Okay, so you get one more salvo unspotted, potentially. Again, can't see that being a gigantic, just can't see that being a gigantic gameplay change for that. Okay, and you got some bug fixes. Wow, have some bug fixes. Geez. European destroyers fixed incorrect progression of ASW armament parameters. Okay, nice to fix that. European destroyer, the tier 5, Malvin, depth charge damage reduced, cut, wow, 5,2400, cut in half. Number of depth charges per drop increased from 5 to 6. So they're saying that they're giving you 6 depth charges instead of 5, but they're cutting the damage a little better than in half, a little more than in half. Wow. So you get 20% more depth charges, but 50% less damage per. That's a decent nerf against subs. And then the tier 6 one, the same thing, 5,000 to 2,400 reduction, and number of depth charges per drop reduced from 16 to 8. Now that does look a little bit odd. To have 16 depth charges in a drop, that does seem a little excessive, unless there's some kind of special thing about that ship, maybe historically or in some other thing that says it should have more depth charges. I don't know why that would be. That might be the incorrect progression they were talking about. That may have supposed to have been, originally 6 instead of 16. I don't know. But so again, though, they're cutting the damage more than in half, and they're cutting the number of depth charges in half, but I suspect that number of depth charges was an error anyway. European destroyer Grom at tier 7. Now they're only reducing the depth charge damage from 2,800 to 2,400 to get it in line with the tier 5 and 6. And the number of depth charges increased from 6 to 8 to make it same. So basically the tier 6 and tier 7 will be equal on depth charge ASW. The tier 8 DD European destroyer, the Split, they increased the depth charge damage. So this one got a buff, increased the damage from 1,700 to 2,400. Again, that was probably a mistake, I would like to think. I don't know how many depth charges it has. I'm going to guess it's at least 8. Since the tier 7 has 8, I would guess this would have at least 8. Or maybe 9 or 10, but possibly 8. And then the tier 9 destroyer Lambros Katsanis, they're reducing the damage from 2,800 to 2,400. So basically they just aligned all of these European DDs to have their depth charge damage at 2,400. And again, I don't know how much the tier 9 has in regards to number of depth charges. Who knows? And then lastly, British aircraft carrier Colossus at tier 8 fixed an issue which caused attack aircraft to launch rockets at an incorrect angle. This will come into effect with release of update 12.2. I could see where that would be a problem if you aimed at something and it derped them into the water or shot over the ship. That's all we need is another aiming bug. So, okay, that is the March 1st DevBlog about changes to test ships. So, what are the big takeaways? Well, okay, we got a lot of bug fixes here. So, attack aircraft launch angle fix on Colossus. So if you want to play that ship, that should be a help for that particular armament. And then the European DDs, they just basically aligned the depth charge damage so that all of them are 2,400, and then they kind of aligned the number of depth charges to an extent. So you can call a lot of this nerfs. A lot of it seems like nerfs for the most part, although the tier 8 was a bit of a buff, but it's just really getting it a better aligned, which is fine. That's, You know, I'm not sure why it was so off at first to begin with, but at least they're fixing it. And now's the time to do it, not after they've been released for a few months. And then you've got changes to the Pan American cruisers. I don't really understand the change to the Tier 9 and 10 smoke screens that much. It's very little difference that I could tell this would make the gameplay. Just very little. But then a little bit of variation here. You get Nerf Hammer on the Tier 5 and the Tier 8, but a slight buff on the Tier 7. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I mean, all in all, not a bad dev blog. I don't understand all the changes here on these, but that's because I'm not excited about these ships, so I haven't spent a lot of time studying the stats on the original dev blog of what they're supposed to be. So that would be one reason why I don't quite have a comprehension of the full impact of some of this. So you can go out and look at the stats, though, because the dev blog will have it there. And if I make a YouTube video of this, I'll put the link to the dev blog in it. So how about that? All right. So that's the end of that one. Let's go to the next dev blog. This is from today, or is it? Nope, this is also from yesterday, from March 1st. And this is simply about, very short to the point, dev blog looks like, about new ship distribution methods. So this is details about what resource you can buy some of the upcoming ships for. So in the upcoming updates, you'll have the opportunity to anchor several new ships in your port for free. For free, we'd like to tell you what in-game resources some of them will be available for. American battleship Illinois will become available for research points, and the American submarine Gato will become available for steel. Now, I'm not much on submarines. However, I would like to have the Gato sitting in my port. I don't know if I want it bad enough to spend steel on it, but what's cool, well, number one, other than the fact that the Gato is a famous submarine, the other thing that's really cool about Gato, and this is from way back in the day, when we bought our games to play on a 5 1/4 inch floppy disk on the old original, XT type, early PCs. And I had the game, and may still have it around here stored away somewhere, called Gato. And it was a submarine game that you could play. And I'd have to look that up, but it was a pretty cool thing. Let's see, Gato submarine game. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is in Wikipedia. We'll look at this. Here it is. So here you go. This is it. This is the thing. Submarine battle simulation. So I have this. And look, this is how old it is. Look at how this screen looked. This is, it's just, this Nintendo looking text from the original Nintendo. It's great. I love that stuff. So retro gaming, that's why it's cool. And that's one of the reasons I would like to have it in my port. Even if I don't care about playing it, that would just be a cool reason to have it. But anyway, back to the depth blog. That's it. And there's not much to review on that other than if you want the Illinois, it's going to cost you research points. If you want the Gato, it's going to cost you steel. There you have it. Okay, so now the next dev blog. We have a dev blog that came out today on March 2nd. And this is regarding balance changes on the public test server, or public test 12.2. So let's see what Wargaming's up to here. So we're applying balance changes to the following ships based on the analysis of both their combat statistics as well as player feedback. Okay, so we got the hybrid ships, we got the Agano, the Cherbourg, or Cheeseburger as we call it, the Finyang, the Maestrale, the AVR, the Adriatico, that's a lot of the Italian DDs there, the Cavour, the Nino Bixio, the Katovsky, interesting, Incomparable, Alvaro de Bazan, and Trompe. Very interesting. Now, I've been enjoying the Trump, but I just can't find my posterior with both hands with the Alvaro de Bazan. I just can't get the hang of that thing, or at least not yet in my limited games in it. But let's see what they're doing to these ships. So the hybrid ships, this would be your Tier 9 Kearsarge, Tier 8 Tone, Tier 6 Issei, will receive depth charge airstrike with standard stats for the relevant ship type and tier. They also have access to the airstrike modification 1 upgrade. So basically, they're getting depth charge airstrikes. So I would assume that means that they don't currently have them. So that's what, the Kearsarge? Well, let's find out. Let's bring up World of Warships real quick, and we're going to go look at the Kearsarge because I've never paid any attention. Where is it? Equipment. Look at that. You're right. No sub ASW. Interesting. Yet if you go to the Iowa, there's your sub ASW. So that's interesting. You're going to get ASW, and I would assume Kearsarge is going to get something similar to this. It should get something similar to the Iowa, I would believe. So you're talking about 10 kilometer, couple bombs in the payload. Yeah, one plane with a couple bombs. 30-second reload, 4,200 damage. I would think that's what you're going to be looking at. So that was interesting. So let's go back. Next, the Tier 5 Agano, the one of the new Japanese light cruiser line, fixed incorrect torpedo damage. Torpedo damage reduced from 2967 to 17233. You know, I think I've mentioned in the past that the torps were absolutely ridiculous on that thing. If they hit, well, now we see why. Because they screwed it up. Well, at least they admitted it's incorrect and they fixed it. Main battery reload time reduced from 9 to 8.5. Honestly, I found the Tier 5 to maybe be a little better than Tier 6 in some ways. So I might have to go back and check that out again. So interesting. Next ship, the Tier 8 Cherbourg. Cheeseburger, main battery reload time increased from 28 to 29 seconds. I mean, is it really that strong? Is the thing really that strong? Maybe it is. I haven't looked at the stats. Maybe it's that strong. 28 to 29 seconds. Now, I know that's only 1 second reload. You know, you're only talking about, what, maybe 3.5% or so, but still, I mean, the reload is basically equal to the Tier 8 battleship at the tier with 381s. I think it's 30, isn't it 30 seconds for the Tier 8 French battleship? I think so. That's why I can understand you wanting a long reload on some of these, but almost equal to the battleship guns, 305s versus 381s. I'm not sure. I'm not saying give it a 15-second reload, but I'm saying 25 might seem more reasonable, 23, something like that, because this tier, until you get to Tier 9, you don't get anything to boost that and make it better. So I don't understand why it has to be that bad, but I know that's kind of a thing with the French. So maybe they're keeping to some flavor. Let's you know what? Let's take a quick look at the Cherbourg, and we're going to use the WoW stats and numbers site here. This is where I've said, you know, you can go and look up a warship. Okay, we're going to click on the Cherbourg, and we're going to look that up. And when you go to this website, it's going to show, now look, here's the stats of all the ships. Now, if you look here, Cherbourg is actually number 4 in win rate. So, I mean, that is fairly strong on the list of things. The average frags is is where? The average frags is down here. So tied for 5th? Or tied? No, it's actually behind that. It's tied for 9th. Right in here. But basically, it's in the upper, it's in the upper third. So it's pretty strong. Your average damage, let's see where it falls there. The average damage is purple, and it falls, 8th? It falls just above Amalfi. So you got that. What else doing? Planes destroyed. Kills per death, I don't see that number being a problem. So, it's got a solid win rate. It's 4th in win rate. It's solidly in the top, say 30% of average frags and average, easily in the top 30% of average damage. So does that deserve a reload nerf? I don't know that it does. I'm just saying, but that's my opinion. So anyway, let's go back to our information again. So yeah, I don't totally get that one. I don't know why that was needed. I get it's performing pretty well. Maybe they want it in the middle of the pack, but I don't understand that. So Finyang and Ship Smasher, which are the same boat, the main battery reload time reduced from 4.7 to 4.4. That's nice. So the Finyang and Ship Smasher are basically like Akazuki, except their torps are a little longer range, but they are like a Sashio torps. They're double deep water, so they only hit battleships and carriers. But they're like a 12-kilometer range instead of 10. So you got that. But you're talking about, even at 4.4 seconds, you don't even hold a candle to the Akazuki. I mean, Akazuki is very strong. And I can't remember, its reload is somewhere around 3 seconds, I think, in 3-second base range. So I can't say that that's the worst thing, because there's sometimes that's the reason. I mean, Finyang is still, with the type torps it has, to me that places a higher value on its guns, because your torps are really selective. They're not as useful as the Akazuki torps, which can hit anything. So you can't use your torps if a DD's charging you down in smoke. What are you going to do? The only thing you're going to do is maybe scare him or make him maneuver if he doesn't realize you have deep water torps. And same thing, if a cruiser charges you down, what are you going to do? You're not going to torp him. You have to run if he's getting too close. So guns are a premium. So that's actually probably kind of welcome change there. Next is the Italian DDs. So 3 of them. So you got the Maestrale, the SAP shell damage reduced, so a slight nerf there. The Aviaire Tier 6 main battery reload time increase. So basically these are different forms of DPM reduction for Maestrale and Aviaire. But the Adriatico, the main battery reload time is reduced, so a slight buff there, almost a 5% buff to DPM. So that's interesting and certainly welcome for the Adriatico. What else do we have here? Conte Cavour, Tier 5. I think this is the battleship with 13 guns on it. Do I remember that correctly? Main battery reload time reduced from 30 to 28.5. I can't remember if it's the Conti or if it's the Tier 6. It might be the Tier 6 that's got the 13 guns. But so that's a slight buff to the Conte de Cavour. Well, I mean, the accuracy is bad enough that it's not the worst thing in the world. So no complaints. Tier 2, Nino Bixio. Okay. SAP shell maximum damage reduced from 2,800 to 2,600. I've never played that ship, that I can recall and didn't realize. SAP at tier 2 I would think would be strong. Main battery reload time, though, reduced from 12 to 11. So that's interesting. If you're playing tier 2, you'd want to take a look at that. All right, let's go on to tier 5 Katovsky. Main battery reload time reduced from 9.5 to 9. Now, Katovsky's an interesting ship because you've got good guns on the boat, good, nice big guns that really slap, but the dispersion is absolutely horrid. Horrid on that ship. Vertical dispersion especially. So, very interesting that they would reduce that slightly. It could, it's not going to hurt it. Katovsky is not good. Like I say, when you hit something with the guns, it hurts. But other than that, not so good. All right, incomparable. Main battery reload time reduced from 29 to 28 seconds. It's a 6-gun battleship, although it does have big guns. But I mean, I guess I could see that. I'm trying to remember where that compares to the. Trying to remember where that compares to the Shikishima. I want to say Shikishima, is it like 26 or 27? So that's, again, probably something that's needed. You have a ship that's faster and much more stealthy and has torpedoes, but it's also much more lightly armored, and has to get a little closer to the action to fire guns. So there's a trade-off there, and that's probably not a bad thing. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing at all. And last two here. Alvaro de Bazan, burst fire reload time reduced from 28 to 24 seconds. Now that's interesting. That's quite interesting. Okay. And let's see. The last one, the Tromp. The Tromp would have my vote for like the best ship released in the last year. I really enjoy the Tromp. Even when I don't play well in it, I still enjoy it. So this is interesting because look at this. They can increase the torpedo speed from 64 to 71 knots. That's interesting. They increase the maximum damage of the torps from 13.7 to 15. Whoa. And the flood chance was increased. That's interesting. So they're making the Tromp, which already has like a 5.9 conceal. So they're really making it more of a torpedo boat and not so reliant on its planes. So that's really good. So faster torpedoes with higher damage. And I think those things have like a 13.5 kilometer range, if I remember. Something in that range. So that's pretty good. Pretty good indeed. That 15,000 is going to hurt whenever DDs eat those. So something to keep in mind when you're running up on Trump in the future. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. I think the Trump was already a fine ship the way it was. I don't know why this was necessary. Don't understand why it was necessary. But, I don't know that it's going to make the ship suddenly OP, to my knowledge. So anyway, there are your balance changes from the March 2nd DevBlog. So what are the biggest takeaways? Well, the huge buffs to the torpedoes on the Tromp is one of them. That's huge. The Alvaro getting a better burst reload time. A lot of buffs to a lot of these ships. What else do we have? Some nerfs to the lower level Italian DDs is interesting. A buff to the DPM on Finyang and Ship Smash. I might have to play those a little more, or from time to time. The increase in main battery reload of the Cherbourg, which is, I don't understand that one at all. I really don't know why that was needed. And then the correction of the torpedo damage issue on the Tier 5 Agano. Finally got around to that. But then they gave it a main battery reload time buff to make up for that nerf. So anyway. And then lastly, you got depth charge airstrikes being given to all of the hybrid ships. So there you have it. That is it. That is the DevBlogs for March 2nd. So I probably got time enough for at least one more game. So let's go and see what we can get up to here. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to see notifications of future videos, just ring the bell. Until next time, Tater Dawg says, woof.